Eric from the Eric Street Photography blog. So one thing I want to talk to you about is in praise of stubbornness. So one thing I was thinking about is why is it seen in modern society that stubbornness is a bad thing? So for example, we're taught to be open-minded, to be flexible and say, oh, you know, quit being so stubborn, quit being so open, closed-minded. And this is my revelation. Whenever someone calls you closed-minded or stubborn, essentially what they're saying is, how dare you not obey me? I know what is better for you than what you think you know is better for you, and I don't like it when you do things that I don't like. So essentially what I mean to say is this. Whenever people call you stubborn, inflexible, arrogant, selfish, self-centered, whatever, really ask yourself, why are they saying that and what do they really mean? So let me give you an example. So I think with children, we generally don't like it when children are stubborn, like, you know, kids are playing at the park and, you know, parents want to leave, and obviously as a parent, it's freaking annoying when your kids don't obey you. But that's because, you know, we as parents, we want to exert control over our children. We want them to obey us, we want them to do as we wish. But sometimes maybe as parents, we should probably ask ourselves, actually, what is best for our kids? And perhaps it might be a good thing to indulge our children a little bit more. So let me give you an example. The person I'm most grateful for, me being who I am today, is probably my mom, because she actually did indulge a lot of my personal interests. When I was interested in Legos, engineering, I actually did the Lego Mindstorm thing where you could program. I was into electronics, computers and stuff like that, and all this stuff was really expensive, and my mom was poor, yet she was able to scrap up a few bucks to help afford these things for me. And as a consequence, I got really good with computers, with internet technology and so forth. And I think the problem is, as I've gotten older, I've been taught to be more prudent, to be more frugal, whatever. But if you think about it, if you're an innovator, you cannot really be frugal. You have to take some sort of types of risks, and just kind of remind yourself that if you want to really make a big change and you want to innovate, you have to be stubborn. So let me give you an example. Steve Jobs was probably one of the most stubborn individuals ever, and I've probably read his biography by Walter Isaacson like 100 times, and you know, people are like, oh, Steve Jobs is such an asshole, so arrogant, so inflexible, but he was an artist with a certain vision, and if it wasn't for Steve Jobs' his personal stubbornness, all of our devices today would be ugly as fuck. They'd just be like those stupid PC beige ugly stuff that any of you guys, I'm 30, so any of you guys who grew up in the 90s, don't you, even the 80s, remember how ugly computers and devices used to be? I remember the first smartphone that came out was that stupid Windows thing with like a trillion buttons. It was so ugly, and essentially phones or devices didn't get sexy until Steve Jobs, Apple, Jony Ive, and the design team came along. And even I think it was Steve Jobs with his arrogance, where he actually made design sexy. He actually changed the paradigm where the engineers used to be king, and now designers have become king, and that's thanks to Steve Jobs. Or even Elon Musk, if he wasn't so stubborn about making the Tesla cars the way they are, even like the door handles which kind of close, like, he was very stubborn about these design details. If he wasn't so stubborn on making Tesla look so sexy, like, there'd be like all the other ugly electronic cars which have existed in the past. So anyways, I just want to encourage you, yeah, to be more selfish, for you to be more stubborn, for you to be in some ways a little bit more closed-minded and inflexible in what you truly believe in. And now, I think in general this notion of open-mindedness is positive, where you're willing to learn new things, you're willing to consider other options, but still, ultimately, if you believe strongly about something, you should be very, very inflexible about what you believe strongly. So I think, just practically speaking, how I tend to live my life is, I'm very, very stubborn about the things I really, really deeply believe in, and I say no. But for small little petty things like, oh, you know, where do I want to eat dinner tonight? I'm like, I don't care. I'll eat whatever as long as there's meat. So, generally speaking, maybe a good way to live life is be flexible with small petty details, things which aren't really that big of a deal, but be very stubborn, very inflexible, and be very hard in terms of what you really believe in. All right? So don't play yourself. Believe in yourself. You got this shit. Peace out.